October 26, 2010, LEGO Universe hit the shelves. Little did I know at the time that I would go on to fall in love with this game, and to this day, I still consider it my favorite game of all time. LEGO Universe was LEGO's first and best attempt at an MMORPG, and shut down early 2012. I still remember my last moments in Avent Gardens and the Blockyard to this day. The game follows you, or your minifigure to be more precise, as it makes its way through the aftermath of the Maelstrom. Essentially, four explorers, three of them being the faction leaders you meet in the game, discover the Imagination Nexus, the long-lost source of pure imagination. The fourth member of the crew, Baron Typhonus, corrupts the imagination, turning him into the Darkitect and creating the Maelstrom, the enemies you will fight throughout the game. Unfortunately, due to the game's cancellation, we never got any closure on the story or any final boss fight with the Darkitect. The game costs $10 a month to play, or, for free, you had access to the Venture Explorer, Avent Gardens, and the Blockyard. At the time, I was only 8, and couldn't convince my parents to pay a monthly fee for a game I could just play for free anyways. So throughout its lifetime, I was free to play. It was this subscription model, among other factors, that ultimately led to the game's demise. Fast forward to 2022. A project to restore the game called Dark Flame Universe released its source code for people to host their own private servers. Come 2023, I was able to join a server and relive a childhood classic long gone. Loading into the sign-in screen itself was a trip. It really had no right to be as fun and whimsical as it was. You can even see Bob, the minifigure in the red shirt, cover his eyes while you're typing your password in. After spending way too much time creating my minifigure, we're greeted with a quick cutscene and we're thrown into the game. Welcome to the Venture Explorer, where our journey today begins. Something I found insane recently is that LEGO fully orchestrated the soundtrack, and furthermore got Sir Patrick Stewart to be the narrator. This Sir Patrick Stewart. All this for a LEGO game. I digress. After we build our rocket and leave the doomed Venture Explorer, we land in Avent Gardens for the first time in 11 years. There's plenty to do here, but the highlight is Avent Gardens' survival and the Spider Queen boss fight. Survival is exactly what it sounds like. You survive for as long as you can. The longer you survive, the more enemies spawn and the more challenging certain enemies will become. There's one enemy to note here, the Chainsaw Stromling, which is exclusive to this battle instance. I really like its design and wish it was featured in the game more. On your way from survival to the Spider Queen, you'll come across the Monument, probably one of the most recognizable places in LEGO Universe, and somewhere I spent plenty of time when the game was live. And this is where you'll find your first imagination brick, a blue 2x2 brick that increases your maximum imagination, hidden in the Monument's hand. Imagination as a mechanic can be compared to a magic meter of sorts, where it's used for quick builds, special abilities, and specific weapons. You finally make your way to the launch area, and then the Blockyard. Another big feature of this game is the property system, a place where you can build your own creations for everyone to see. These properties have to be claimed by first defeating whatever Maelstrom presence that guards it. The Blockyard is home to the Spider Queen, who you'll need to defeat to claim the property as your own and progress in the game. Once defeated, she can be fought again via a launch pad in the Spiderling Caves. After defeating the Queen Spider, there are two other areas accessible here for paid players, Avent Grove and Return to Venture Explorer. However, now that the servers are hosted privately, the entire game is available to play for free. For now, it's time to rocket off to Nimbus Station and experience the rest of the game that I never got to when I was younger. Nimbus Station doesn't have a whole lot going on, acting primarily as a hub to get to almost all of the other worlds, and home to the Battle of Nimbus Station minigame, which is a battle sequence that takes you back in time to when the Maelstrom had invaded Nimbus Station. Unlike Survival, it has waves of enemies, and a definitive end. After doing a few quests here in Nimbus Station, you'll get to join a faction. You have 4 to choose from, but my favorite has always been the Paradox. After joining my faction, I decided to go ahead and check out LEGO Club Station Alpha, a space station for LEGO Club members. Unfortunately, you couldn't access it during live unless you paid to play, even if you were a LEGO Club member, which you know I was. Getting the LEGO Club magazine in the mail each month was a highlight of my childhood. There isn't too much here other than a vendor and Max himself, but I think the coolest part is that it's accessed through Max's portal, which was featured in the Adventures with Max series of short films in the LEGO Club DVD. Backtracking to Avent Gardens, for whatever reason, I decided to tackle Return to the Venture Explorer, despite being pretty underleveled. Here we get to experience the current state of the tutorial ship that has since been overrun with the Maelstrom. This is considered a battle sequence similar to Avent Garden's Survival and Battle of Nimbus Station. After completing the few quests there, it's time to go check out Nexus Tower. Here you'll find the faction leaders and gain access to the vault, which will free up a whole lot of inventory space. There's quite a few quests here that I remain blissfully unaware of for a very long time that I won't go over. You'll be in and out of Nexus Tower quite a bit regardless, since it's the primary way to access your vault, the Ninjago world, and Crux Prime. I think once you choose your faction, you're probably supposed to go to Gnarled Forest next, and then the Forbidden Valley. I kind of did things out of order and went to some of the smaller places first, but here I am now, Gnarled Forest. Here you meet Captain Jack Knife, who is featured in My LEGO Network, a social media sim that was available on the LEGO website at the time. The basic story here is that many crewmates were infected by evil treasure, turning them into Maelstrom imposters. Gnarled Forest is also home to the Cove shooting gallery, a mini-game where you shoot Maelstrom-infected vessels or creatures while trying to avoid hitting friendly ships. It definitely mixes things up compared to other minigames, and I'm quite a fan. Other than that, I don't have much to say about this location, other than the enemy designs are pretty awesome. In particular, the Stromling Ape is one of my favorite enemies in the game, design-wise. Forbidden Valley is similar to Gnarled Forest, in the sense that it's themed around a faction. Where the Gnarled Forest was heavily pirate-themed, the Forbidden Valley is ninja-themed. I feel, however, that Forbidden Valley has a lot more content in it. My favorite parts were meeting Numchuck, another character who is also in My LEGO Network, and the Forbidden Valley Dragon Battle. Oddly, the Dragon Battle isn't considered a battle sequence in the achievements section, despite having to load in separately like the others. There were actually 4 LEGO Universe characters featured in My LEGO Network, the third being Friendly Felix. He was meant to be in an early version of Nimbus Station, and at some point was also planned to be in Starbase 3001. However, he never ended up making it into the game, making him exclusively appear in My LEGO Network. The fourth is Professor Brickkeeper, who also isn't in the game itself, but is present on the LEGO Universe website's Creation Lab, a place people shared their real-life LEGO creations. After finishing up Forbidden Valley, you now gain access to Crux Prime, the endgame, or at least the hardest point of the game at the time of its closure. I was once again definitely underleveled when I decided to come here, although this is where you get some of the best loot in the game. The quests to complete here were definitely some of the biggest challenges as far as quests go that I've had to do the entire game, particularly the one where I had to construct a shield generator. Building the shield solo was not intended and required a lot of imagination potions and patience. Crux Prime is filled to the brim with scaled up enemies that are far harder, titled Invaders. Among these enemies, every once in a while a named variant of one of them will spawn in, with a much brighter, pinker color. These named enemies have better loot and more health. 2 of these named enemies always spawn in the same places, being Rue Morgue and Butterscorch. Rue Morgue is a named variant of the Stromling Ape and my mortal enemy. Don't get me wrong, his design is amazing. I think on top of his model just being so cool, that combined with Rue Morgue's color palette in particular, makes him stunning and probably my favorite looking enemy in the game. All that aside, he has a ridiculous amount of health, spawns on a ridiculously small platform, and doesn't have great loot drops. Butterscorch is a named version of the Maelstrom Dragon, having more health compared to her invader counterparts, and, like Rue Morgue, spawning on a small platform, making combat trickier. On top of the already small platform, though, It's floating over a void, so if you get knocked off, you die. Butterscorch is the closest thing to a final boss in the game, but really doesn't feel like a final boss. Crux Prime also has an entire section dedicated to Ninjago, as Ninjago was originally planned to be here rather than have its own world. Here you'll find the Maelstrom Quarry, occupied by plenty of skeletons being overseen by Commander Knuckle. Past the quarry, you'll meet Nato in the Ninjago Monastery ruins, who will give you a few quests to kill some skeletons and the such. Though, this is nothing compared to the actual Ninjago world, which very easily has the most content in the game, all jam-packed into one world. The Ninjago world is very interesting. You pretty much have to restart, in a way. Your normal weapons and armor are less effective against the skeletons, which means you have to completely build up your arsenal from scratch and get Ninjago-specific armor and weapons. This also applies to the skeletons on Crux Prime. You get to meet all 4 of the original ninja, who all for some reason have the same exact face, despite the mission images showing them with their correct and show-accurate faces. You'll also meet Sensei Wu and Nia, and go on to master the 4 elements of Spinjitzu, while also reclaiming the golden weapons. Unfortunately, there was a lot of planned content for Ninjago that never made it into the game before shutting down. There's an advertisement for the Fire Temple coming soon that pops up sometimes when loading, and there was a Ninjago-themed property planned as well. I specifically remember a page in a LEGO Club magazine advertising a bunch of new enemies coming to Ninjago. The Bone Beetle, Bone Vulture, and the Underhand. I was disappointed to find out that these were all planned for the Fire Temple, so you can't find them in-game. In contrast to Ninjago probably being the best world in the game, Starbase 3001 is, in my opinion, the worst. Its concept is cool, a hub, like Nimbus Station, that had access to player-made mini-worlds. The 3 mini-worlds available, however, are pretty lackluster and not super fun to play. Each mini-world has several quests to complete that will get you an exclusive rocket, but there is no reason to return to them after you get the rocket pieces. I feel a similar way towards Pet Cove, although Pet Cove is meant to be an introduction to pets and nothing more. And it is, in fact, nothing more and nothing less than just that. The world is incredibly small, but pretty. You meet Coalessa, who introduces you to pets and how they work. Other than finding the imagination brick and collectible flags, there's nothing to do here. Even the few achievements there are here are incredibly easy. All of that out of the way though, I like Pet Cove. It's peaceful and it does what it sets out to do well. There will come a point in the game pretty quickly though that you'll never have a reason to return. From this point forward, I'm playing on a different server called Brian's LEGO Universe. They were kind enough to transfer my character over so I wouldn't have to restart. There are plenty of reasons I switched servers, the 2 most important being that the community is much larger, and the server is frequently updated, fixing a lot of crash issues the old server had due to lack of maintenance. This server also has several promotional items that you wouldn't be able to get otherwise available, such as the Nexus astronaut uniform and the Nexus rocket, which I actually own the official sets of. A lot of grinding took place since Pet Cove, and I'm left with only a few more things to cover today, the first being the Valiant weapons. The Valiant weapons are endgame, 2-handed weapons that are extremely powerful. Each faction has 2 Valiants, with a 3rd for each that wasn't finished before the game closed. Each Valiant corresponds to a specific class, so for example, the Valiant I got, being the Wormholer, went with the Space Marauder class that I had chosen. The Wormholer is an extremely cool weapon, resembling a machine gun in use. Its design is crazy, with a chainsaw off the front making for an imposing shape. It does great splash and bleed-through damage, and has an ability to summon a friendly Stromling mech to aid you in battle. Now that I covered my Valiant, the last faction-related thing we have to worry about is the faction pet. This is where that blissful ignorance of the Nexus Tower quests comes back to bite me in the tuchus, as they're all required for obtaining the faction pet. One of the quests required is pretty fun. You have to disguise yourself as a crate and spy on the other faction leaders. Other than that though, there's nothing really notable about the whole process. The Paradox's faction pet is a pretty cool alien and was definitely worth the work though. At this point you may be wondering, where's the racing? Here it is. Here's the racing. Are you happy now? In all seriousness, the racing isn't great. I never really had any interest in trying the racing out to begin with, but I decided to try it out anyways to see what I was missing out on. I really wasn't missing much. It's controlled with the WASD keys on your keyboard, with the spacebar for boosts, and that's it. It's really that simple. It doesn't control all that great. The tracks are cool, at least to see more of their respective worlds at the very least. But at the end of the day, it's perfectly serviceable as a racing minigame. Not great, but not absolutely terrible. I'm definitely not choosing that over Mario Kart anytime soon. Finally, you have Frostburg. Frostburg is a comet that was available to visit for a limited time in December of 2010, and would have returned the next year had LEGO Universe not been cancelled. Brian's LEGO Universe has it available year-round, so I got to experience it for the first time, and it was quite nice. It's a pretty small world, hence being a comet, but it's far better than Starbase 3001's snow-themed world. It even has its own racetrack. Although its track is just a reskinned version of Nimbus Stations, I actually prefer it as it's visually more interesting and feels a lot faster due to the ice mechanics. Frostburg even has its own currency, candy canes, which can be used to purchase special Christmas-themed items from the vendor. All in all, it's a really nice little comet and a positive to end off on for today. I know this was longer than usual, but there's just so much to talk about this game. It's a very important part of my childhood, as it was to many other people, and it's exciting to get to talk about it and play it again. That's all for today, and I'd love to hear your experiences with the game if you have any in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, please have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.